Morning, everybody. It is Friday. It is August 14th. I am Julie Roginski here with Jeff Jarvis. Michelle is taking the morning off and getting some well-deserved rest. Jeff, how are you?
Happy Friday. I'm good. I'm
Happy
good.
Friday.
I'm gonna sneak in a plug. My book is out as of now, so hot type about the linotype and the beginnings of mass media. You can go to jeffjarvis.com and order. Thank you. That's the end of the plug.
Is it really can you get it on Amazon? Can you get it
Yep.
wherever
Yep.
your books, paperbacks are
Yep.
sold or hardbacks are
Hardbacks.
sold?
Hardbacks still. Yeah. Yeah. So
Can
thank.
you do me a favor and drop it in the chat so people know how to
Will
purchase
do.
it?
Will do.
Okay. Um,
Thank you
I
for that
will.
opportunity.
I did not know that. I will buy. When was pub date? Tuesday?
Yeah, I think it's actually next Tuesday, but people are getting the copies.
Oh, okay.
That's weird.
All right, everybody, go get Jeff's book because
Thank you.
every book Jeff's ever written is worth it and is awesome. And maybe we can get Jeff to sign a few copies and send it to people. Okay, Jeff.
Where do we start today, Julie?
Where do we start? Well, I do want. There's one thing I want to talk about after we talk about the big thing, which is that Caroline Levitt has left. And everybody is putting out these memes saying, I hope it was worth it, Caroline. He left you on a plane as a decoy. And that's, and I hope it was worth it. And you understand he doesn't mean jack shit to you. You don't mean jack shit to him, and so on and so forth. And I'm sitting here laughing because, of course, it was worth it. She's going to get a multi-million-dollar lucrative deal at Fox News. I guarantee it.
Yep.
It's probably already a done deal. She's going to co-host either Outnumbered, although they already have a former Trump person on that, or she's going to be on the or they're going to build a show around her. But the reality is this 29-year-old has now set her, however old she is, 27-year-old, I don't even know what her age is, has set herself up for life financially. And she's going to outlive Trump on that. And so she's not going to work that hard. I can tell you that, having worked at Fox and co-hosting Outnumbered in the Five, easiest gig in the world, like not hard. Especially if you're not a Democrat like me, because then you have producers doing your research for you. So you literally just have to sit there and look nice for an hour and, say whatever
What you're supposed to say.
What you're supposed to say. So yeah, it was worth it. So we could say bye-bye to her. But what's interesting is the race to replace him. And I am actually friendly with, from another life, not because I would ever be friends with anybody who's a Trump person, but from another life have known, and I'm friendly with somebody who is somebody who worked for Trump and Trump won at a very, very high level. And I don't want to embarrass him, so I'm not going to tell you who it is, but somebody whose name I think we'd all recognize. And I ran into him a few years ago, or a year ago or two. Actually, I think at CNN. And I said to him, like, haha, people think Scott Jennings is going to be up for press secretary. And he said, on what planet are these people living? Trump would never put anybody in there who is not a hot blonde. Like, it's not going to happen. And I think
given some of the history, I wouldn't necessarily use the adjective hot, but keep going.
Okay, but that was Trump. That was Trump one.
Yeah.
That was Trump one. Trump two, I think Trump wants to be surrounded by women he wants to ogle. And I think he thinks about people who are good on TV. And for him, people who are good on TV are people who are good looking.
Yeah.
What
does he always say? Central casting. Central casting. He always talks about every role.
Right.
He thinks his life is a movie, and these roles are cast.
Yeah, and no, not Jesse Waters, because somebody said in the chat said, because Jesse Waters is a guy, and Jesse Waters would not walk away from that sweet, sweet Fox money anyway. He's got a lot of child support to pay. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was Alina Habba. I wouldn't be surprised. She's not a blonde, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Natalie Harp.
She's such a close aide of his.
I don't know that he would want to have her be anything other than his, and I don't know what that relationship.
She was on the real jet, not the decoy jet.
Yeah,
because she stays close to him at all times.
I don't know what that relationship is, Jeff. That's a very weirdo relationship that I don't even want to delve into.
We don't want to.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to be her, but I think all these people who are like, oh, it's going to be some guy from Breitbart, or it's going to be Scott Jennings, like.
Right. So other guesses that we've heard out there: Matt Boyle from Breitbart, Carrie Lake, Monica Crowley. But here's the one that really gets me: Katie Miller.
Okay, here's the deal. I actually know Monica Crowley because I worked with her at
I
Foxford.
actually used to be on Coast to Coast with her a
Yeah.
lot back in the day.
So Monica Crowley, who I like as a person,
Hmm.
although uh,
Disagree about everything.
disagree about everything and have always.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I think she's aged out.
Exactly. I think so too.
And I think
Not in,
that
not in our judgment, but in Trump's judgment.
in
Just to
Trump's
be clear.
judgment, not in
Yes.
our judgment. Actually, Monica Crowley fits the mold beautifully in every other
Yes.
way, but she's aged out.
And she actually has some IQ.
Right. I think that Carrie Lake is also aged out, and I don't think that Trump necessarily likes Carrie Lake because I think she's too nutty even for Trump.
Yeah.
I think it's like somebody like Alina Habba, or I don't know who this.
Well, what about Katie Miller? What do you think about that
Katie,
one?
don't think she's
Uncontrollable.
Don't think she's Trump's cup of tea.
Yeah. No.
Physically.
All right. So I just want to take 1 minute here, and I want to imagine. You said immediately in our email exchange that Scott Jennings isn't going to get it because he's not a young blonde woman. But I just want to imagine, just for the sheer joy of it, him at that podium screaming at the White House press corps, "You ignorant sluts! You communists! You terrible people!" It would be so much fun to watch for a Scaramucci.
I don't think he would do that
I
because
think he's too smart too. But
he's too smart. Like Scott's not an idiot, right? Scott's an opportunist. Scott is a horrible human being. Scott is, Scott's the kind of guy who, the minute Democrats come back into power, is going to be sucking up to every Democrat in the green room. Exhibit A of what that used to be like during the Biden years. But so Scott's not a dope, right? Like Scott knows he's not gonna implode, and Scott's not gonna pull a Scaramucci. But I'm surprised that Scaramucci pulled a Scaramucci. But Scaramucci, listen, here's the deal with Scaramucci. Scaramucci went to the White House, as he told me, for one reason and one reason only. He wanted to get Ryan Priebus fired, and he succeeded. So for Scaramucci, I think it was 11 days well spent.
Well, there's one Jennings scenario here, is that I think that I would not go so far as to say that the Paramount Warner Brothers deal is in trouble, but it's not certain.
Right.
And that deal was Scott Jennings' key to life. And if he believed that it wasn't going to happen, he's enough of an opportunist. He might start thinking about other opportunities in life.
Well, I'll say this. First of all, I think Trump needs Jennings at CNN. Like, why would you pluck Jennings out of CNN? Because there's nobody at CNN who sucks up to Trump quite the way that Jennings does, right? David Urban doesn't. Sure, Michael Singleton doesn't. They still have some sort of like soul left in their lives. Jennings does. And so if you're Trump, why would you take a guy like that off the board at CNN? That's one. Two is Jennings is making a shitload of money at CNN, and this would be a massive pay cut.
Yep.
And three, I think Jennings understands potentially he goes and does this for a couple of years, and then he leaves CNN and he goes to Fox, because that's the that's the holy grail. He's never been able to hack it at Fox, which is why he's at CNN not at Fox. I keep calling him Timu Gutfeld for a reason. I worked with the real deal. He's much more talented than Jennings. Jennings isn't that talented. That's the difference. So look, I think it's going to be somebody like whoever the assistant press secretary is, whose name I can't remember, or it's going to be Alina Habba, or it's going to be somebody else that they pluck out of the RNC who I don't know who she is. But Jennings wants it. I mean, Jennings desperately wanted it. He told me he wanted it back in the day. But he's not going to get it. I mean, sorry, Scott, no amount of, GLP-1s are going to make you thin enough or hot enough for Trump. And that's just the reality of who Scott Jennings is, and the reality of the fact that he was, he's of use in other places. He's of use at CNN. Yeah. And I don't think that the Paramount deal is in trouble. I think from a legal perspective, Paramount actually sounds like it has a good case. I think where the trouble is that, if this judge keeps postponing it, they're going to run out of money.
Yeah, that's what makes it, that's right. The only thing that makes it dubious. And I think the question is, and I was disappointed to see the Democratic candidate for governor in California already wimp out and say, well, I want a settlement. No, he should go for killing the deal.
Well, listen, let me tell you something. Everybody and their brother is on the payroll somehow.
Yes.
And that's the problem. I mean, shame on Gavin Newsom. Really, shame on Gavin Newsom. Um, the what's interesting is even it. This is so fascinating because I would say that the Attorney General of California wins even if he loses politically,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Sis James wins even if she loses,
Hey,
wins
we tried.
politically. We tried. If you capitulate in advance, guess what? People aren't going to be loving you for that.
No.
And that's
Especially at a time, I keep quoting you all the time.
yeah,
What people want right now is fighters.
that's all
Full
they want.
stop. And
Yep.
there's a lot of there's a lot of dragons to slay here.
Yep. And the question is, and what's fascinating to me about this whole Paramount deal is if Ellison just fired Barry Weiss today, just fired her. Just, she has $150 million and 150 million reasons to go away.
Mm-hmm.
If he just said, you know what, Barry, take your money, keep running the free press, go do your thing. We'll give you some bullshit title, but you're fired from CBS and you're not coming to CNN. That would help tremendously. And I don't understand why he hasn't done it. Like, easy thing to do. That's one. And the other is, if it gets really down the road, just spin off CNN. I think he can't spin off CNN because he doesn't want to piss off Trump, because that's the only reason this deal is going through.
Exactly.
But he's already gotten the federal approvals. So he doesn't really need Trump anymore. I mean, he might need him for other stuff. But
Well, Daddy, he needs Daddy who needs Trump.
well, does Daddy need Trump for what? Because
I
they've
think
got the
just a
approvals.
relationship to power.
Potential.
I think, yeah, I
Okay.
think Daddy actually likes Trump. That's
Okay.
how weird he is. So.
But what doesn't make sense to me is just get rid of Barry Weiss. And if Leslie Stahl and all these people stuck around CBS because they were assured that Barry Weiss doesn't have control over 60 Minutes anymore, then make it official. Right?
Yeah, but I think you're imputing a little too much sanity into this. That this is a business. I think that the news part of this conglomerate is not about business at all.
It's
They
not.
know it's dying. It's about influence. Now, fast forward 3 years, if we have a Democratic administration, it doesn't look so smart. But now it's all about access to power. And Barry Weiss, the fact that Barry Weiss is a burr in the saddle of most of the sane country is exactly what they want. So she's doing her job. She's ruining CBS, but they want to ruin CBS. They want to ruin CNN come the day. They know it's a bad business anyway. It's dying anyway. So why not take it down and get credit for taking it down? I think that's what her job is.
I don't know. I mean, I guess so, but I would think that if you're trying to get this Paramount deal done as quickly as possible, because listen, it's not like judges don't read the news. And it's not like they're not influenced by it. I know that everybody thinks they're impartial and yada yada, but I mean, I have a Supreme Court to tell you if you think they're impartial.
Yeah.
And the more you have people at CNN coming out and saying, we're scared, this is awful, we don't, I mean, it's not just Kara Swisher is on the record. I mean, I think she speaks for that entire place. I mean, if Anderson Cooper left CBS, what signal is he sending? Because he won't work for Barry Weiss. What signal is he sending about his future at CNN? Now, they may not care about Anderson Cooper, but he's a big name.
Yeah.
And you have Clarissa Ward signing a 1-year deal. She is the best thing going at CNN. She's phenomenal. You've got Paula. I keep saying Paula White. It's not Paula White, but I mean you've got people leaving CNN already and going to MSNBC because they don't want to deal with the uncertainty. At some point, you got to think about the fact that like people don't want your brand in charge of yet one more network.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, the great Oliver Darcy at Status reported this week that Ellison is floating the idea of creating a journalism review board for CNN as a buffer, as a safety. Now, you and I are both old enough to remember when, I think you're old enough to remember this, when Murdoch took over the Wall Street Journal. There was a review board there. When he took over the Times of London, there was a review board there. Never heard from again.
Yep.
These review boards are a veil that mean absolutely nothing. But it does say that, I mean, Ellison knows that the issue is politics, right? His op-ed we talked about a week ago was all about saying, It's not antitrust, it's politics. And there's a paradox there because the truth is it is about politics, but they're using antitrust as their veil, the AGs. So he sees the need for a veil for CNN. He sees the need to say, I won't hurt it too much, because he wrote that op-ed. He's talking about a journalism board. He knows he needs this in some way, but none of it is credible. He's a complete bullshitter. He's a propagandist. He wants to make it, and he said this in his op-ed. He wants to. His idea of balance is a lot more right-wing crap. So yeah, I don't know where this goes.
I don't either. Meanwhile, I want to just talk about your favorite subject, the New York Times, today, because I have a newsletter out this morning that I have to tell you, I was in shock yesterday. I opened the New York Times. Well, I don't open it anymore because I read it online, but I click
you
on
open a website.
I open the website.
It just goes this way, not this way.
Yeah, I click on the website, and what do I discover? The New York Times does what I can only describe as a hagiography, and that is the polite term for a BJ, on the deal between Robert Iger and Jared Kushner and the Lakers. They're buying the Lakers. Mm-hmm. And the entire story is basically a meet cute about how they met through their wives, who both used to be the faces of Estee Lauder and Carly Kloss, and how cute that she's a supermodel, and how cute that Willow Bay, who now runs the Annenberg Center and is a journalist, but was, used to be a model and is married to Iger. And basically how cute this relationship is. And this headline right now is how Bob Iger and Joshua Kushner's friendship led them to the Lakers. And it's by Brooks Barnes, who's the chief Hollywood correspondent, and a woman named Tanya Ganguly, who covers money and sports. Friends, this should not have been covered by the guy who's covering Angelina Jolie for the New York Times. This should have been covered by an investigative journalist.
Yes.
Because this deal stinks to high heaven. And let me tell you what I did today, which the New York Times has so far failed to do. Let me connect the dots for you here about this deal. And again, the fact that my little newsletter had to do this and not the New York Times is absurd. And whoever the PR person is for either Iger or Joshua Kushner, that person deserves the biggest raise on the planet for getting this particular story into the Times about their cute meet cute. They met through their wives, and Iger sees himself in this young Joshua Kushner and fantastic. And okay, here's what it doesn't mention. In June 2025, Mark Walter, who's the owner of the Dodgers and owns a tremendous number. He's got a stake in Chelsea, the Chelsea Football Club in England. He's got a stake in RC Strasbourg. He's got a stake in a Formula One team. He owns the entire professional women's hockey league. I'm only telling you this, Jeff, because this is not a dilettante. This is a guy who's really into the sports world and has kept teams and not flipped them willy-nilly, right? Mm-hmm. He's not a dilettante. This man, Mark Walter, who again has owned the Dodgers since 2012, didn't buy them to flip them, but bought them to make them the greatest team in baseball, which is what they are right now, agreed to acquire control of the Lakers in a deal valued at about $10 billion. And that was the biggest sports deal in history until this week. The NBA approved the transaction in October. In the intervening 4 months, right? In September, so in between when he agreed to acquire control of the Lakers and when he took control of the Lakers in October, the month before he took control of the Lakers, federal agents seized his phone and computer as part of a broader investigation into his sprawling empire. This investigation seems to have begun after Donald Trump came to office in 2025. And within months of Walter agreeing to buy the Lakers, the FBI was executing a search warrant against him. This is the remarkable part that I cannot believe the Times didn't do, right? Less than a year after Walter officially becomes the Lakers' controlling owner, Joshua Kushner, was the younger brother of Jared, and Iger, venture capitalist, appeared with a breathtaking $12.5 billion offer to buy the Lakers from him. And that deal came together within 72 hours.
A weekend, right?
Right? You can't do diligence on an apartment sale in New York City in 72 hours. Right? Never mind a $12.5 billion deal. How do you put that money together that quickly? How is it that you are able to do due diligence on this quickly? Now, this guy is obviously hunting for liquidity because of this federal investigation. And they're also putting separate regulatory pressure on his insurance companies through the SEC.
We don't really know what the investigation's about. Right?
Well, we sort of do in the sense that we know that it's they're examining about $16 billion in loans involving companies tied to him and his TWG global conglomerate and insurance companies that are under his control. So it's some amorphous, like he did something inappropriate in loans. But I just want to recap this, right? The owner of the Los Angeles Lakers is under investigation by federal prosecutors working for an administration headed by Donald Trump. And he suddenly finds himself in desperate need of liquidity as a result. The buyer who magically appears is the brother of Trump's son-in-law and political consigliere, Jared Kushner. The first news report of the federal investigation into Walter arrived on July 20th. Exactly 20 days later, Kushner reached out to Walter with an unsolicited $12.5 billion offer, and presto, came together in 3 days. And did Kushner know about this investigation prior to reaching out to him?
It'd be a shame what happened to that nice team of yours.
Yeah. And, I want to just, because I started digging into this, I want to just talk about Iger, his comments, which really raised a red flag for me, right? I'm going to just read what Iger said recently after this deal came together. We were involved in pursuing the new franchise in Vegas. There's some new basketball franchise they wanted in Vegas. And while that happened, it was suggested to us
suggested the passive language.
Right.
Wonderful.
That maybe Mark Walter would be interested in selling his stake in the Lakers. And we immediately decided that given the value of the franchise and the iconic nature of the team, that we would be really smart to pursue it. The deal came together in 3 days. It's that simple. So here are my questions, which the New York Times has failed to cover or answer or anything else. Who suggested to Iger and Kushner that Walter was interested in selling? How did the money for this come together so quickly if Iger and Kushner have been unaware that there was a possibility Walter might be desperate enough to sell a team that he just acquired? And again, I want to just be very clear. This is not the first time sketchy shit has happened with Joshua Kushner, who keeps saying he's a Democrat, he's married to Carly Kloss, she's a big Democrat, he didn't vote for Trump. Bullshit. And I say bullshit because I've known Charlie Kushner a long time. I know how this family operates. This is the same family that has no problem with setting up a prostitute with their own brother-in-law in order to get a leg up on, business dealings.
And by the way, Charlie Kushner recently announced that he's so fed up with Mondavi, he's leaving Manhattan. Like, good, be gone.
First of all, I don't know when Charlie Kushner lived in Manhattan. The guy's been a Jersey guy all these years.
He's a Jersey guy, but yeah.
And another thing that the Times just took at face value, or whoever it was, as opposed to being like, wait a second, Charlie, you're a registered New Jersey resident. So I don't know what Manhattan street is talking about.
Let's get rid of his pied-à-terre tax.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's right. It's pied-à-terre thing. Great. Okay. Bye-bye. Actually, he didn't say that. He's not selling his apartment. That's the best part. That he's just like, I'm moving to Florida. Yeah. You and every other New Jersey older Jewish man. Okay. Congratulations, Charlie.
Anyway, sorry for that little
detour. I just want to say that this is not the first time, right? Because only weeks ago, Kushner's Thrive Global, whatever his fund is called, was supposed to become the quote-unquote anchor investor in FIFA's and Gianni Infantino's crazy proposal to carve the commercial machinery. Basically, he was going to give away all the lucrative commercial aspects of the World Cup to Joshua Kushner. And he was going to get away with it until basically World Soccer rebelled against him. But how did Joshua Kushner end up in Gianni Infantino's orbit? Well, Infantino has super close ties to Jared. He's got a very close, tight bond with Trump. In the lead up to the 2020 World Cup and also during the 2026 World Cup, those relationships became even more conspicuous, right? And then lo and behold, just weeks after the World Cup ended, Joshua Kushner's investment vehicle suddenly emerges as the anchor investor in Infantino's crazy plan, which again, I want to be clear, is just killed. When that deal fell apart, suddenly this deal with the Lakers came together. Well, Joshua Kushner would never have been in a position to have this deal with Infantino or even have Infantino's phone number if not for Jared or for his
And
relationship.
Jared wouldn't have any influence he has were it not for Trump.
Were it not for Trump. The Trump Justice Department, which again is not exactly an independent vehicle, as we've learned, is suddenly investigating the owner of the Lakers. Now, maybe there's something to this, and maybe there isn't. I have no idea. But lo and behold, the owner of the Lakers suddenly is like, holy shit, I need cash. He's not selling anything else. He's just selling the Lakers, which is what these people, he's not selling the Dodgers. He's not selling Chelsea, his stake in Chelsea. He's not selling his Chase in Strasbourg. It's just the Lakers, which he flipped in 10 months. This is not a man who was
for a profit, for no
for a
reason.
profit of
Yes.
$2.5 billion. But the point is
Not
not that. The
expected.
point is he wasn't looking. This is not somebody who was going to buy a team so he could flip it for a profit. And all of this raises enormous questions. This whole deal stinks to high heaven. And yet, where in the world is the New York Times? They're running meet cute stories about how how Iger and Kushner and they're met through their
Obnoxiously
wives.
rich people.
I mean, look at this. In early 2018, this is from the Times. In early 2018, Willow Bay, Mr. Iger's wife and the dean of the University of Southern California's journalism school, became friendly with Carly Kloss, the fashion model and entrepreneur. They bonded over Estee Lauder. The cosmetic giant was preparing to make Ms. Kloss one of its newest faces 3 decades after Ms. Bay had modeled for the brand. Ms. Kloss soon asked Mr. Iger for a favor. Would he sit down with her boyfriend? She was dating Mr. Kushner, the founder of Thrive Capital, an investment firm, and the brother of Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law. I think she thought he would benefit from some of my wisdom, Mr. Iger, 75, said with a chuckle in a phone interview Wednesday. And then you have this whole, you have this whole ridiculous, story about how cute they are and how fantastic they are. And, before their sale to Mr. Walter, the billionaire chief executive of Guggenheim Partners, the Lakers were owned for decades by Jerry Buss or his children. Mr. Buss turned the Lakers into a revered global brand. The whole thing is, it talks about Jack Nicholson sitting courtside in Denzel Washington and blah, blah, blah. And, and then, of course, Mr. Iger's relationship with the NBA is unusually personal. Adam Silver, the league's commissioner, has been a close friend for more than 3 decades. It was Mr. Silver who introduced Mr. Iger to his future wife, Ms. Bay, in the 1990s when she was hosting the television show NBA Inside Stuff. I just want to say that, of course, this is supposed to be approved by the NBA, and you could bet your ass that Adam Silver is going to, of course, wave this through without asking any questions.
In 72 hours.
In 72 hours. And it still has to be approved, but we all know the writing on the wall.
It's going to be.
Again, something that the New York Times, in their little meet cute story about how Adam Silver introduced Iger to Willow Bay, doesn't bother to say. Like, wait a second, this guy is not just some guy who is like a close friend of Iger. This is the guy who has to approve a deal that has serious questions behind it, right?
They don't connect the dots that you were connecting before our eyes right now.
There is nothing about
the other question I have, Julie, in your reading, have you seen where the capital is coming from for this deal? Is there Saudi money involved? Do we know who's behind it?
We don't know anything.
That's the other piece.
We don't know anything. And the New York Times doesn't have anything. What we do have is, in 2023, Mr. Iger joined Henry Kravis, the founder of the private equity firm KKR, and a handful of other rarefied investors in buying a piece of Thrive itself. Last year, Mr. Iger and Ms. Bay attended Mr. Kushner's 40th birthday party at Katz's Delicatessen in New York. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? My head is exploding. Next,
they're going to be singing karaoke together.
It's absurd.
This is the power. This is the power center of this country now. This is Washington and Hollywood brought together, and current Washington, and the Times is treated, as you say, as a meet cute story, not as an examination of power and capital.
I mean, you know how like every news story, the last line is really the line that they're trying to make the point about, and how it's, like it's basically what they want you to walk away from the story with, right? This is how the Times ends a story. But his purchase of the Lakers with Mr. Kushner is clear evidence, they're talking about Iger, that his post-Disney life won't look much like retirement. Instead, he has found another outlet for the deal-making and ambition that defined his tenure at Disney. Perhaps part of the attraction is that, you ready for this? Is that Mr. Iger recognizes something familiar in Mr. Kushner. Quote, he's a friend, but I also love the ambition, Mr. Iger said. It's infectious.
Jesus.
I mean, if people are wondering why regular people want to blow up the system,
Why they're angry.
Why they're angry, why they're electing, in some cases, wackadoodles as opposed to kind of moderate Democrats, it is because they are so pissed off about shit like this that they want to blow up the system. And from my perspective, whoever greenlit this story, the New York Times, and assigned it to the Hollywood Reporter, not the Hollywood Reporter, the outlet, to the reporter in the New York Times that covers Hollywood, as opposed to assigning it to whoever their biggest investigative journalist is,
or a business reporter,
is exhibit A as to why people need to just, like, my head exploded when I read this story. Why is it that my little Substack was able to connect the dots without being, by the way, all open source stuff? I didn't call anybody. I didn't call the SEC for comment. I didn't call the Justice Department for comment. I didn't call the Kushners or Iger for comment. Because all of this is out there. It's public. It is linked and sourced. And yet the New York Times, in their coverage of this deal, is writing a story about how brilliant Joshua Kushner is, how he's the second coming of Bob Iger, one of the great CEOs of the last, 50 years. And by the way, it wasn't so long ago that Bob Iger was on the wrong side of MAGA. So he knows exactly what he's doing. If you root for the Lakers now, friends, I can't help you.
Yep.
Just saying, I can't help you.
Imagine in your head right now a big hashtag, broken times. This is why I especially, but why Julie too, on merits and demerits, criticizes the place. May I mention the other appalling thing I saw in the Times today?
Sure.
So they had an op-ed of some length by Gregory Conti and Aaron Sabramium. The latter is on the staff of the right-wing Washington Free Beacon. The former is identified as an associate professor of politics at Princeton University, but he's also of Free Press and the right-wing Manhattan Institute. And I have never seen such a bald, first-person statement of bigotry, embrace of bigotry, that is platformed by the New York Times. If I may just read two paragraphs. Over the years, Republicans have portrayed, and the idea here is Republicans are about to repeat the Democrats' biggest mistake. Well, what's their biggest mistake? Mind you, the Republicans are fascists, but okay. Over the years, Republicans have portrayed Democrats as beholden to bespoke identities, they, them, obsessed with an alleged genocide, Gaza, and in thrall to anti-American revisionism. See the efforts to recenter our national narrative on slavery.
Recenter our national narrative on slavery? This country was built on the backs of slaves. There's nothing
How
to recenter.
dare you say that, Julie? You're being negative about our history.
I mean,
how woke of you. You're so woke one, Julie.
What's so interesting, I'm not even that woke.
No, I know.
But I'm telling you right now that anybody who tries to diminish that this country was built on the backs of slaves, from the capital that people visit as the archetype of democracy in the world, to our founding fathers, to the only civil war that we've ever had in this country that was fought,
politics today.
To politics today. If you don't think that every aspect of this country, the one thread that connects all of it, aside from the fact that we're all working towards a more perfect union, but the dark side of it is slavery.
Yeah.
There's not what is there to discuss?
So, second paragraph. We are critics of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs who largely agree with that characterization, which I just read.
Okay.
We believe the Republicans' war on woke has made America a fairer, safer place by checking some of the worst excesses of modern progressivism, from anti white discrimination in corporate America to biological men competing in women's sports. It's a bald statement of bigotry and white nationalism here, and it's a very long op-ed that doesn't get any better. And the Times chooses to platform this. And I know what the argument is. Oh, we have to hear from that side. We have to hear. No, we don't. No, we don't. And they give this space over constantly to people who have these noxious, odious opinions. And this is not just platforming it; it's normalizing it. It's making it say that this is okay in public discourse to say that companies trying to be fairer to people who've been discriminated against for years is anti-white, and anti-white is wrong and is the new definition of discrimination in this country. But good God, this is the New York effing Times. It was the New York Times. It is no longer the New York Times. So that was my rant for today, too.
I mean, listen, I know how hard it is to get a op-ed into the New York Times. Trust me, we've talked about
I
this
was thinking about
repeatedly.
that today, right? Yep.
And not if you're a right winger. I mean, honestly, because they're so desperate to appear fair and balanced that they move the Overton window of what is acceptable.
Well, let me ask a question, Julie. I don't know that this is fair and balanced or moving the Overton window. The question now becomes, and people say this to me all the time, when I criticize this Times, they come in and say Salzberger's a fascist, whatever, and I never go for that.
He's not.
He's not. No, he's not. But I'm coming to wonder, in especially the staff of the editors at the Times editorial page and op-ed, how many of them actually maybe agree with this op-ed?
I think that I don't know. I think because I recently met with the editorial board at the time, so I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I think that if you work,
it's getting weird.
I think if you work at the New York Times, and I have a lot of friends who work at the New York Times, and I think as do you, I'm sure, Jeff, right? Because like if you live around here, you just it's the whatever. I know a lot of people work at the New York Times. I think all of these people live much like if we didn't try that hard, we would be living too, in a very rarefied world, where you don't get to work at the New York Times. You certainly don't get to work at the op-ed desk of the New York Times unless you're really, really successful in life. And it means that you might have gone to the right school, or it might have been that you are largely in agreement with the owner of the Times. Because again, if you're an op-ed, I'm going to pull one randomly. If you're Nick Kristof, right? You don't answer to anybody.
Right.
You only answer to the owner.
Yep.
That's it. You don't have an editor you have to answer to. You don't have anybody else to answer to. You are hired specifically by the owner, and you are ultimately answerable only to the owner. And that makes you a really unique person in the world. And it makes you hang out with the owner. Like I went to a party at the Times for Nick Kristof's book that he was putting out with his wife. I want to say maybe right before COVID. I was invited by somebody else who was invited. It was very small. It was inside the New York Times. I asked one of my reporter friends who I wanted to just catch up with there, hey, are you going to be there? And he said, we can't go to that. We're not invited. And I look around, and it's the who's who from Bill de Blasio, who was mayor at the time, to basically the who's who of like elite New York. And that's who these people hang out with on a daily basis. They just do. And I think when you are in that universe and you're very privileged that way, I'm not denigrating it, by the way. I mean, good for them for being able to get to that point in life. But when you're in that universe and you're denigrating it, everything becomes an intellectual exercise. Like look at Ross Douthat's columns, right? Or even Maureen Dowd's columns. Look at Maureen Dowd's columns. Better example, right? Maureen Dowd wants to show all of us how well she did in the verbal section of the essay. Like that is Maureen Dowd's purpose in life. And also Maureen Dowd just got a master's degree at Columbia in English literature, some bullshit. So she also wants to show us how she's going to put that to use by having Shakespearean analogies or or the point is, this is not how normal people are. They're just not. And when the New York Times publishes this stuff, I think they tip. That's why they do all these like man in the diner stories, because to them this is like visiting the zoo, right? Like in this diner in Ohio, Bubba thinks that Donald Trump has a point about woke, and it's just not. I don't know who they're writing for anymore except themselves.
Well, one of my theory, which I wrote about in the Columbia Journalism Review about 2 years ago, is this goes back to my friend Jay Rosen, now retired from New York University. When the Times primary support passed from advertising to subscription, Jay said, this is going to change the relationship of the newsroom to the public. And he didn't say how or why, but he was right. And my theory, building on that, I won't blame him for it, is that this is the way that the newsroom, but especially the editorial board, say to the people who are now their financial support, you don't own us. We can piss you off. Look how independent we are. And what is AG's favorite word that he uses all the time? Independent. We're independent. He never says independent from whom. It's no longer a case of being independent from advertisers. It's not even really being independent from those they cover in power. Witness what you talked about in your Substack this week. It's about being independent from their own readers. It's about saying, you can't blow us in any way. We don't work for you. Even though the paradox of course, now we do work for you. So they want to prove that they're not beholden. And it's a perversity almost. But the thing that I don't know is sometimes they do it perversely, as I just said. We don't really believe this, but we're going to show you that we can say this just to piss you off and show we're independent. But I'm starting to wonder how much if you say it often enough, how much does it come to seep into your psyche?
I mean, I think my problem with some of this stuff is, and again, I know how difficult it is. Like, I had to source for this op-ed that I wrote that my friend Gretchen Carlson, well, we wrote it together. But I know how much we had to source every single thing that we said about the Me Too movement. I mean, everything. We raised Governor Murphy in New Jersey trying to silence a young woman after she had accused somebody on his campaign of sexual assault. We had to source that. That was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. But we had to source even something that was, this is not something that's even debatable. It's like the sky's blue. Like, I basically had to source it, the sky's blue. And everything had to be sourced down to every opinion, not just a fact, but every opinion had to be sourced. And yet, I feel like if you're on the right side of, not the correct side, but the right-wing side of the equation, you don't have to source jack shit.
Right.
You just say it because it's edgy and it's counter.
Yes.
It's a counter narrative, and it's showing that the Times is unafraid to publish counter narratives. But friends, if we're now debating whether slavery really was the one thread that ran, like source that for me, like source that contention
and throw your own 1619 project overboard. The cliff. What if you're Nicole Hannah-Jones and you pick up the paper and you read that in your own newspaper? What are you thinking? I mean, it's a betrayal.
Because and I keep going back to this line that Michael Wolff, who is a horrible person, but Michael Wolff sent to Jeffrey Epstein in this email. Who knows if it's true or not? But he said it. If people knew, and I'm paraphrasing here, if people knew about Pinch Sulzberger, Arthur Sulzberger, who's AG's father, who at the time was running the New York Times, the owner of the New York Times, if they knew about what Pinch had been up to, like, it would collapse basically the entire social structure of New York City. I'm not suggesting
I doubt that, yeah.
I'm not suggesting that Pinch Sulzberger was involved in any of this at all. What I'm simply suggesting is the last part. It would collapse all of the social structure of New York City. There is a very elite social structure in New York City, and these people sit atop it. And if you sit atop that social structure, a priori, to use a word that Maureen Dowd would appreciate,
show off.
Yeah, you don't know how normal people think. And then you get shocked when somebody like a Zora Mandani wins, or an Abdul El Sayed wins, or somebody like a Hassan Piker takes off. or a Darylisia Chevalier or whatever her name is, gets elected. And P.S., I don't agree with all of these people. I am not a fan of any of them.
Right.
But I understand where they come from. And I understand where MAGA came from. Because on the Republican side, they're elites, they're Wall Street elites, they're big business chamber of commerce elites, did not understand, they're free trade supporting elites, did not understand the pain that regular people on the right were going through, or even not on the right, just generally. And that's where you had people like the former Senate House Majority Whip, Eric Cantor, losing to a nobody. And people were like, how did this happen? Well, that's how the Tea Party came up. And ultimately, that's how MAGA and Donald Trump gained power. It's happening on the left now. And the New York Times is going to have the same reaction that the Chamber of Commerce did on the right.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also goes, I mean, we talked about these races last week, and with the defeat of the DSA in Wisconsin last week, they're constantly declaring that the DSA has taken over the party, declaring the DSA is dead. And they haven't learned what you just said, is that there's an underlying movement whose motives you don't understand and can't summarize in one fell swoop. And then your coverage is going to fail. Because if you think it's as simple as going to a diner and hearing people, it's not. And if you think it's as simple as one label for people, it's not. You brought up a name there, the unpronounceable Ross Douthat, who I just wanted to just mention real quickly, because he had the longest goodbye. It was like a bad death scene in a Western. And as he departed, Dylan Byers, who, by the way, Dylan Byers, his credulous coverage, his beat sweetening with Barry Weiss drives me completely insane, and a Paramount. But he does do some good industry interviews and has interesting guests. But then he does the damnedest things. He declared that Ross Douthat is, quote, the thoughtful liberal's favorite conservative. What?
What?
Yeah. So I'm glad that Ross Douthat is out, but the fact that he was, speaking of burrs in the saddle, he was in a burr in his existence was a burr in the saddle of Times readers. And the Times reveled in it, and now Barry Weiss takes him on because he's a fellow rebel from horrible woke times when the Times ain't woke. And this is what you're going to see on 60 Minutes.
Oh, listen. We've said it before, and I'll say it again. The fact that Leslie Stahl and the rest of them actually believe that somehow Barry Weiss is not going to be in charge of 60 Minutes after she's surrounding all of them with the producers that she's surrounding themselves with and the other people that she's surrounding themselves with. It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah. What else do we have in news this week? I'm curious on your take on the whole jet switch. Air Force One as decoy turned out not to really be a threat. How do you play that in the psyche of Trump and the press?
I mean, I think Trump is, I think what's fascinating is how these reporters, despite the fact that they were being used for bait, whether it was a threat or not, right, still don't want to make themselves part of the story. So they haven't really been saying, this is the same White House correspondence crew that decided to have a second dinner because that's what Trump demanded.
Yep.
And now they're sitting there saying, oh yeah, we're basically, it's fine. It's fine. Like, he left his Secretary of State, his press secretary, basically his entire inner circle, except for Hegseth and Natalie Harp. And I forgot maybe
who won't leave his side.
Who won't leave his side. He left the rest of them to be decoys and meat, and that includes the press, and they're not covering it.
Yes.
They're not covering it. In the same way, to me, that it's pathetic that every time he tells Caitlin Collins to smile And every time he tells a woman that she's Miss Piggy, whatever he calls her, quiet piggy or, all of this shit, that the entire White House press corps just does the good ones. I mean, certainly there are people who are awful. Don't just walk out. Now their excuses, well, that's what Trump would want us to do, right? So he could replace us with, whoever. You could do very good access journalism or good reporting without actually being in the briefing room. And I will tell you this, Trump doesn't respect Breitbart. He doesn't respect the MAGA outlets. He is still that loser from Queens who wants to be in the New York Times.
Yep.
That's what's important to him.
Yep.
And that's why taking over CNN is important to him. That is why taking over CBS is important to him. He's a loser who wants to be rewarded by the outlets that he grew up with that were respected. And Breitbart didn't exist back in the day.
And he wants his own PR to be there, which brings us back, by the way, a few threads here together, to Caroline Leavitt, who was indeed his favorite press secretary because all she did was speak his PR to the world without anything else. Susan Page, I heard her this morning on MS Now of USA Today, praised her, in a sense, as Trump's most effective press spokesperson. And I was kind of shocked at that. I know what she was trying to say is that she spewed his propaganda. But what she was also saying was she was treating it as a professional judgment. And it was a normalization. She spewed lies and defended lies. And as a journalist, you're honoring that by saying she was effective as a press spokesman. It just drives me completely bananas.
Well, on that note, Jeff.
One more, if I may, real quickly, because we criticize the Times. I criticize the Times particularly all the time. I want to praise Ben Mullins, who covers media. So I want to go back a little bit here. Every time that Forbes is on Morning Joe, which is often, I roll my eyes and I say, who wants to tell them that Forbes has been a joke for decades? Starting in 2014, I wrote about this in one of my books. They gave away their editorial space to contributors, air quotes, which was a way to get free content, and to advertisers, something they call brand voice, where the reader couldn't tell whether this was a paid ad or editorial. They sold the soul of Forbes long ago, a guy named Louis Dvorkin, that was his invention. He went on to have a disastrous, brief Scaramucci-length tenure at the LA Times as editor, and then on to the badly named Tronc, and hasn't been seen since. The guy in charge of Forbes has been a guy named Randall Lane.
I worked with Randall Lane on a project at Forbes a few years ago. And let me tell you something. When I read that story, I'm less surprised.
Surprised, not surprised.
I'm less surprised that the sun rises in the east.
Yep.
Than that.
So Randall Lane, by the way, I just never trust anybody who wears an ironic hat. You're bald. Go with it. So Lane,
you say that because you've got good hair.
Not bad. I mean, whenever I do, nobody ever tells me that except when I'm in makeup chair when I used to be on TV, and I always love that moment. Wow, look at his hair. So Randall Lane was the chief content officer of Forbes, and he disappeared suddenly, just gone. And I was wondering. I asked around. I looked through the socials. I asked people I knew. What happened to Randall Lane? Well, God bless, Ben Mullins also said something's here, and he uncovered the fact that Randall Lane was paid $6 million by a company that works with Forbes when it was bought as friendship, as thanks for your advice, Randy. And Forbes, which has very little soul left, this was too much even for them. And they fired him. And by all accounts, he seemed to be keeping the $6 million.
Yeah, and he was like, mea culpa.
Kinda.
Well, he was like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that.
I screwed up, right?
But that's okay, because he's got $6 million.
Yeah,
you know what?
Who cares?
I do a mea culpa too for $6 million. He's in good shape. Let me tell you something. Again, very briefly met that guy a few years back. I mean, the least shocking thing I think I've ever heard.
Yep. So anyway, kudos to Ben Mullins. I think it was good reporting. And I think that's everything I have on my list.
Listen, by the way, kudos to the Hollywood reporter guy at the Times too. Like he did the job that he's been assigned to do, which is to
Yeah.
do a Hollywood version. I mean, listen, if you were still running, it wasn't E that you found. What was your
Entertainment Weekly.
Entertainment Weekly? If you were still running Entertainment Weekly, you'd be writing that kind of story too, right? That's basically his job. It's the editors who have a problem with,
Yeah.
not him. So I don't want to say that I. By the way, the guy who had his job many iterations prior was David Halfinger, and David Halfinger is now a big political editor at the Times. No, I'm sorry, David Halfinger left being the political editor of Times to go back to Israel to be the Jerusalem bureau chief of the Times. My point is, like, he was a really good, incredible investigative reporter, and I am wondering, maybe I'll email him because he's a friend and ask him, would he have covered the story that way when he was in LA?
Yeah.
Because I just could not believe what I read when I read that story. I was like, the name Kushner should automatically
Ding,
make
ding,
you
ding, ding,
ding, ding, ding, which is what it did for me. And then I was like, oh, it took me about, I don't know, 10 minutes to connect all the dots. It took me longer to write the story than it did for me to connect all these dots.
Yeah.
And again, I don't have the resources of the New York Times.
And not unlike the Randall Lane story, there's some stuff we don't know, like who's the money behind this and what are those connections and where are those conflicts with all of this. There's more reporting to be done, not more slathering.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's reporting that I will not be able to do because I can't call Joshua. I could, but I'm not going to get an answer. The Times has the resources to do them, but they're not going to do them. They're going to write more stories about how Carly Kloss is the new face of Estee Lauder. Congratulations to her, by the way. Congratulations to Estee Lauder. She's beautiful and well-deserved for her to be the face of Estee Lauder. That's not the point of the story. Okay. All right, Jeff. I will see you. Maybe I'll see you this weekend. I might be in your neck of the woods.
In the name.
Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, so good to see everybody. Michelle, if you're watching, I hope you had a good rest. And everybody else, we will see you guys next week. And I will be back tomorrow. I think I'm going to be back tomorrow from the sidelines of a squash tournament for our Saturdays for Sanity show. But if not, I think Michelle will be here with one or two other people. Okay. Bye, everyone. See ya. Bye.
See ya.